The space station floated quietly in the endless dark of space, a shining city where many alien species lived and worked together. Ships came and went, lights glowed in the distance, and strange voices filled the halls. For the aliens who lived there, humans were still new, a young race trying to prove themselves among older and stronger civilizations. One young human walked through the wide metallic corridors that day, and by his side was a small cage. Inside the cage was something that made the aliens laugh. It was a little creature, weak, thin, with soft fur and big eyes. It looked too fragile, like a pet meant for children, not for someone traveling through the dangers of space. The aliens whispered as he passed by. "Look at that," one alien with green scales chuckled. "The human carries a toy." Another alien with long arms shook his head. "Why do humans waste their time on such useless animals?" Laughter followed the human as he kept walking, his hand steady on the cage. The human did not answer. He only gave a small smile and kept moving. To him, the creature inside the cage was not a joke. It was family. He had raised it since it was born, and though others saw weakness, he saw something else, something he could not explain yet. The creature squeaked softly, pressing its nose against the bars. The human leaned close and whispered, "Don't worry, they don't understand." The pet blinked its large eyes and curled into a ball, small and helpless. But inside, something glimmered that no one else could see. As the human reached the main hall, more aliens gathered. Some pointed, some laughed louder. One tall alien said, "Is this the strength of humans? They keep tiny pets while we raise war beasts." Another added, "Maybe the pet fights battles for him." And the crowd roared with laughter. But the human only stopped, turned his head slightly, and said one quiet thing, "One day you will see." His voice was calm, not angry, not loud, only sure. The aliens mocked him even more, thinking he was only trying to sound mysterious. Later that night, in the quiet quarters of the station, the human sat with his pet. He fed it, cleaned its cage, and spoke to it softly. "Out there, they laugh at you," he said, "but I know who you are." The creature tilted its head, almost as if it understood every word. The human remembered the day he first found the creature. It was on a ruined world, forgotten and burned after a war. Among the ashes and broken machines, he had heard a faint cry, and there, hidden under metal and dust, he found the tiny being. Barely alive, he saved it, nursed it, and carried it across the stars. Since that day, they were never apart. The alien saw weakness, but the human remembered the spark he felt when he touched the creature. It was not like any normal animal. It had something more, something sleeping deep inside. He could not prove it not yet, but he believed. In the days that followed, the aliens continued their mockery. Whenever the human passed, they joked. Some even asked if the creature was food. Others asked if it could sing, but the human never fought back. He simply held the cage and walked away. The creature remained small, quiet, and harmless. It sat in its cage with its innocent eyes, but at times, when no one was watching, its eyes glowed faintly. Just for a second, the human saw it. But he said nothing. He waited. One evening, while the stars shone outside the giant glass windows, the human sat alone with his pet. He whispered, "They think you are nothing, but I know you are more." The creature gave a soft sound, almost like an answer. The human smiled and said, "One day, the galaxy will know." In the background, the voices of aliens still echoed. Laughter still followed him everywhere. But in the shadows of the space station, in the quiet between stars, a secret was waiting to rise. The creature stretched its tiny limbs, yawned softly, and its eyes flickered with hidden power again, for now it was only a strange pet. Small and weak, but soon, very soon, the universe would see its true face. Asterisk. The days on the station passed quickly, and the story of the human strange pet spread through every corner of the great metal city. Aliens of all kinds whispered about it, laughed about it, and pointed whenever the human walked by. Some did it quietly, but most did it loudly. because mocking humans was easy entertainment for them. In the wide market halls, where traders from dozens of planets came together, the human became a small joke. A scaled merchant waved at him and shouted, "Hey human, does your tiny beast carry your bags for you?" Others around laughed, their voices echoing through the chamber. The human did not respond. He only carried his small cage close to his chest, as if guarding treasure. The pet inside sat quietly, blinking its large, innocent eyes. It made no sound, gave no fight, and only looked fragile. The aliens laughed harder at that silence. "Useless, weak, powerless," they said, shaking their heads. "Humans are foolish to care for such things." But there were a few who were not laughing. A small group of alien soldiers sat watching. Frowning slightly, one whispered to another, "It is strange though, why does the human look so calm? No anger, no shame." Another soldier replied, "Perhaps he hides something, but what could it be? That little creature is nothing." The doubt began to creep into the whispers, even as the laughter grew louder. Some aliens wondered if the human was simply mad. Others thought maybe he was testing them. But most still enjoyed the jokes because humans were new and easy to mock. One evening, in the great dining hall of the station, the human sat alone at a corner table, the pet curled beside him, hidden under his arm, across the room. A group of alien officers noticed him and decided to play their game. They stood and walked over, their heavy boots echoing against the floor. One officer, tall with glowing red eyes, leaned over the table and said, "Tell us, human, what is this thing really? A meal for later? A decoration for your room?" The others laughed loudly, their voices like thunder. The human lifted his head, looked at them calmly, and answered, "It is my companion." The laughter grew even stronger, shaking the room. Another officer slammed his fist on the table and said, "A companion? This? Look at it. It would die from a single touch." The human only shook his head, his hand resting gently on the creature's back. "It is stronger than you think," he whispered, but his voice was lost in the sound of alien laughter. The pooty officers walked away, still laughing, but one of them glanced back and frowned. He saw the human stroking the creature as if speaking to it in a secret language, and for just a moment, he thought he saw the little being's eyes glow faintly. But when he blinked, the glow was gone, and he told himself it was only his imagination. The pet itself gave no sign of change. It ate its food quietly, it slept quietly, it moved slowly and weakly. It was everything the aliens believed: fragile, useless, powerless, and yet, the human's faith in it never broke. Every night he whispered the same words. "They don't see you, but one day they will." Rumors spread across the station like fire. Some said the human's pet was a secret weapon, hidden in disguise. Others said it was a mistake, that humans were too foolish to know what true strength meant. Some even placed bets on how long the creature would live: 1 week, 1 month, maybe a year, but never longer. The human never answered those rumors. He carried his pet with quiet dignity, ignoring the storm of voices. But inside, he knew the truth, and he waited patiently. He knew the galaxy had not yet seen what this creature really was. And the creature itself, though silent, though small sometimes, twitched in ways no one noticed. Its tiny body shivered when danger was near. Its eyes flashed when the human spoke softly. Like something sleeping deep inside, waiting for the right moment. The aliens could not see it, but the human did, and it only made him more certain. Still, the doubt in the station grew. Why did this human not fight back? Why did he not defend himself? Why did he only smile? Even the loudest mockers sometimes paused, wondering if their laughter was hiding something they did not understand. But each time they doubted, they looked again at the small creature, and the laughter returned. For now, to the galaxy, it was still nothing more than a strange pet, but whispers of curiosity had begun, and the seeds of fear were slowly being planted. The aliens did not know it yet, but the days of laughter were numbered. The station itself would soon witness something that no one could ever forget. The space station was never truly quiet, but one night, the silence felt heavy. The long halls buzzed with low lights, the markets were closed, and most aliens rested. Yet deep in the command center, alarms flickered faintly. Something was coming. Something the station had not faced in years. The human walked slowly through the corridor, carrying the cage as always. His pet curled inside, small and harmless. 2 alien guards saw him and smirked. "Still carrying that little thing?" One asked. "It will never save you." The human did not answer. His eyes focused on the stars beyond the glass windows. Suddenly, the alarm roared. Red lights flashed across the station. Sirens screamed. Doors locked. Voices shouted through speakers, "Warning, unidentified fleet approaching. Prepare defenses." Aliens rushed from their rooms. Soldiers armed themselves. Captains shouted orders. The quiet station became a storm of fear. The human stood still in the middle of the chaos. The pet inside the cage lifted its head and gave a strange low sound. No one noticed, because the air was filled with noise. But the human heard it, and his eyes narrowed. He whispered, "You feel it too, don't you?" The enemy ships came out of the void like shadows, dark and sharp. They belonged to a species known for destruction, merciless and cruel. Every alien in the station knew their name, and fear spread like fire. "They found us," one voice cried. "We are not ready for this battle." Weapons powered up, shields locked into place, and fighters launched into space. Still, the station trembled as the enemy fired the first shot. A blast shook the walls, lights flickered, and voices screamed. The aliens who once laughed were no longer mocking. Now their eyes were filled with terror. In the chaos, some alien saw the human still standing calmly with his pet. One shouted, "Hide, human. That thing will not protect you." Another cried, "Throw it away. You will need your hands free if you want to live." But the human only held the cage closer, his voice low and steady. "No, I will not." The enemy forces began boarding. The station shook again as explosions ripped through outer hulls. Alien soldiers rushed to block the halls, weapons blazing. Screams echoed as the enemy pushed forward, merciless and strong. The human walked into a corner of the hall, kneeling by the cage. His pet was trembling now, but not with fear. Its tiny body glowed faintly, eyes flashing for longer this time. The human whispered, "Not yet, but soon." The pet gave a strange sound, almost like a growl hidden inside a whimper. As the battle raged, the mockers found themselves cornered. The same officers who once laughed at the pet were now pressed against walls, firing wildly. Fear covered their faces, sweat rolled down. "Where is your war beast now?" One officer yelled in panic, "We are all going to die." The human stepped forward slowly, calm in the storm. Aliens shouted at him, "Are you mad? Get back, you will be killed." But he ignored them, his eyes fixed on the dark hall where enemy soldiers advanced. The pet inside the cage pressed against the bars, glowing brighter. The human nodded, whispering, "It's time." The aliens froze as they saw it. The creature that had looked weak began to change, its fur rippling with strange light. Its eyes shone like burning stars. Its body shook as if power was breaking free. The laughter of the past felt like distant echoes, now replaced by gasps of fear and wonder. The enemy footsteps grew closer, heavy and cruel. Blaster fire lit the hall. Sparks flew, voices cried. The human placed the cage on the ground, unlocked it slowly. The little creature stepped out, still small, but glowing with strange energy. The air itself seemed to bend around it. Aliens stared in disbelief, their doubts fighting against their eyes. One whispered, "What is happening?" "That is not possible," another said. "It was only a weak pet. What is it?" The human simply stood tall, his calm voice cutting through the noise. "You laughed, but you never looked close enough." The station shook again with another blast. The enemy was coming closer, stronger, ready to break through. But in the middle of fear, in the middle of chaos, the human and his pet stood like a single unbroken flame. And for the first time, the aliens around him felt something different. Not laughter, not mockery, but a sharp, cold sense of doubt. Doubt that maybe the weakest creature in the room was not weak at all. The pet's glow spread wider. Its shadow stretched across the walls. The air filled with quiet humming, a sound not from this world. The battle outside raged louder, but here in this hall, something greater was beginning. The transformation was not yet complete, but the first signs had come, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. Asterisk. The battle outside the station raged like a storm. Enemy ships circled like vultures, firing bolts of red light into the shields. The walls trembled, metal groaned, and sparks fell from the ceiling. Alien soldiers fought desperately in the halls, their weapons flashing, their voices breaking with fear. And in the middle of that chaos, the human stood with his small creature. The aliens around him no longer laughed. They only stared. The pet glowed faintly, its eyes burning brighter than before. Each flicker of light from its body made the air hum strangely. The sound was soft, but it cut through the storm like a secret heartbeat. The enemy broke through one of the outer doors. Dark figures poured in, tall, armored, and merciless. They moved with brutal speed, cutting down the first defenders without mercy. The aliens who once mocked the human now cried out in panic, firing wildly as the enemy advanced. The human knelt beside his pet. Unlocking the cage, the little creature stepped out, trembling, its body still small and fragile. One alien officer shouted, "What are you doing?" "Hide that thing. It will die in seconds." But the human shook his head and whispered, "Watch." The creature stood in the middle of the hall. Enemy soldiers raised their weapons, their black eyes fixed on the tiny being. The aliens expected it to run or collapse, but instead, the creature gave a sound no one had ever heard before. It was not a whimper, not a squeak, but a deep rumbling growl, too large for its body. The walls seemed to vibrate with the sound. The enemies fired, red bolts cutting through the air. But before they hit, the creature's eyes blazed like suns. A sudden wave of light burst from its small body, bending the air around it. The blast struck the wave and vanished like sparks in water. The aliens froze, their eyes wide, unable to believe what they were seeing. The creature's body began to change. Its small frame stretched, muscles forming, bones reshaping. Winds of light flickered on its back for just a moment before fading again. Its claws extended, glowing faintly like metal heated in fire. The weak pet was gone. Something new stood in its place, something powerful. One alien whispered, It's impossible." Another muttered, "That thing. It's not an animal, it's a weapon." The human stood tall behind it, his voice calm. "I told you one day you would see." The enemy hesitated, their advance slowing. For the first time they looked uncertain. The creature stepped forward, its small paws hitting the metal floor with heavy echoes. Each step made the lights flicker, as if the station itself felt its presence. Then, with a sudden burst of speed, it leapt. The tiny creature that once fit in the cage slammed into the first enemy soldier. The impact shook the hall, throwing the armored figure across the wall. Sparks flew as the enemy's weapon shattered. The aliens gasped, some dropping their guns in shock. The enemies fired again, desperate, but the creature moved faster, its glowing claws slashing through the air. Each strike broke armor, each roar shook the walls. The aliens who once mocked could only stare, their faces pale with fear and awe. The human gave no orders, no commands. He only watched quietly, his eyes calm, as if this was what he had always known. Every alien who had laughed at him now understood something was wrong. Terribly wrong. They had thought the human weak, his pet useless, but the truth was burning right in front of them. The creature's body glowed brighter with each strike. The humming sound grew into a low thunder that filled the hall. Enemy soldiers fell back, their confidence breaking. For the first time, they faced something they did not understand, a beast born from weakness, carrying power beyond reason. When the last enemy in the hall fell, silence returned. The aliens stared at the creature, breathing hard, afraid to move. It turned its glowing eyes toward them, and they stepped back in fear. But then it walked calmly back to the human, pressing its head against his leg like a loyal friend. The human bent down, stroking its glowing fur. He whispered softly, "Good, but not yet, not all of it." The creature's glow faded slightly. Its form shrinking, though not as small as before. It returned to his side, calm and silent, but its presence now filled the entire hall with unease. The aliens who once laughed dared not speak. Their eyes were wide, their hands trembling. They realized the truth. This was no ordinary pet. This was something hidden, something the human had always known. And the galaxy itself would soon know too. Outside, the battle still raged. The enemy fleet was vast. The station was weak. But now a new force had awakened, a secret no one believed, revealed in the fire of war. The first sign had come, and it changed everything. The station shook again, harder than before. Another enemy blast tore through the outer shields, and metal screamed as alarms echoed through every deck. Alien soldiers shouted orders, their voices full of fear. The enemy fleet pressed closer. Wave after wave, endless and merciless. In the great hall, smoke curled around broken walls. The aliens who had mocked the humans stood in silence, unable to look away from what they had just witnessed. The little creature was no longer little. Its body glowed faintly, its claws burned with energy. Its eyes shone like stars in the dark. The human placed his hand gently on its head. "Calm and steady," he whispered. "You've shown them a glimpse, but now they need to see the truth." The creature blinked, as if understanding. Then it stepped forward, and the floor shook beneath its paws. Another squad of enemies broke into the hall, their armored forms gleaming red in the light of fire. They raised their weapons, confident in their numbers. The aliens around the human stepped back, already hopeless. But the human did not move, and neither did his companion. Then in one breath, the creature changed. Its body stretched and expanded, bones snapping into new shapes. Wings burst from its back, wide and glowing like shields of fire. Its fur hardened into scales of light, sharp and unbreakable. Its small frame became massive, filling the hall with its presence. The aliens gasped, their voices breaking. It's impossible," one cried. Another dropped his weapon, whispering, "That thing was in a cage." But there was no cage now, only a towering beast. Born from the weakness they once mocked, the enemies fired, red bolts flying through the air. But the creature spread its wings, and the blast shattered against a barrier of pure energy. Then it roared, a sound so deep the walls shook, windows cracked, and every heart in the hall trembled. The roar was not of an animal, it was of something far older, far greater. With one strike of its glowing claws, the creature tore through the enemy squad. Armor split, weapons shattered. The invaders fell like dry leaves in a storm. The aliens who watched could not even cheer. They stood frozen, their minds unable to accept what their eyes were showing them. The human remained calm, his voice soft but firm. "You laughed at it, but you never understood. It was never just a pet." The beast stood proudly at his side, wings stretched wide, its glow painting the broken hall in gold. Outside the station, enemy ships pressed harder. But now, the beast leapt toward the outer walls, bursting through broken steel. Aliens rushed to the windows, their eyes wide. They saw it flying into the void of space, glowing brighter than any star. The enemy fleet turned its weapons toward it, firing in a storm of light. But the beast danced between the blasts, faster than sight. Its wings cut through ships like blades, tearing metal apart with fire and force. Explosions filled the dark, whole cruisers breaking in half. Aliens inside the station shouted in disbelief. "By the stars, it's destroying them." "Alone," one cried. Another whispered, trembling, "That was the human's pet, the one we laughed at." Their pride cracked into pieces, their voices small, full of shame and awe. The beast's roar echoed even through the walls of the station. Every living being heard it, felt it, deep in their bones. It was not just sound, it was a message. A promise of protection and a warning of power. The human stood by the window, watching quietly. He placed his hand on the glass, his lips moving softly. "Show them who you are," he whispered, and the beast answered, striking through another enemy warship, its explosion lighting up the galaxy. For the first time in the history of the station, aliens bowed their heads toward a human, not out of respect for the man, but for what he carried, what he had raised. The truth was clear. The weakest-looking creature in the galaxy had become the strongest. And the one who believed in it was not an alien, but a human. The station still shook from the battle, but inside every heart, a new fear and respect had taken root. The galaxy had laughed at a pet, but now it watched a legend awaken, and deep in the fire of that battle, the transformation was complete. The pet was no more. The guardian had arrived. Asterisk. The station was still trembling from the shockwaves outside. Through the wide glass windows, the aliens watched the beast fight in the stars. Each strike of its glowing wings tore enemy ships apart. Each roar echoed through the void like thunder rolling across the galaxy. Inside the station, silence spread. The same aliens who once laughed at the human now stood pale and trembling. Their voices were gone, their jokes broken into dust. The truth stood before them, and it burned their pride to ash. The human remained calm, his eyes steady as he followed the beast's movements across the stars. He did not boast, he did not shout. He only watched with quiet certainty, because for him, this was not surprise, it was destiny. The creature was never weak, never useless. It was only waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. One alien officer, who had mocked the human the loudest, fell to his knees. His voice shook as he whispered, "We laughed at him. We laughed at it." Another officer stared in disbelief, his hands trembling. How could we not see? How could we be so blind? The soldiers who had once placed bets on the pet's survival now hid their faces. They had wagered on weakness, but now they stood in the shadow of power, a power that made their weapons, their armies, their fleets feel like toys. Their pride cracked under the weight of shame. The beast returned for a moment, landing on the station's hull. Its massive form glowed like a burning star. Every alien who saw it stepped back, fear mixing with awe. Its eyes swept across the station, glowing, unblinking, and wherever its gaze fell, the aliens lowered their heads. The human walked to the center of the hall. All eyes turned to him, the one who had carried the cage, the one who had been mocked. He stood tall, but his voice was quiet, almost gentle. "You called it weak, you called me foolish," he said. "But humans see with more than eyes. We see with trust, we see with faith." The words cut deeper than any weapon. Aliens who once laughed could not lift their gaze. They remembered their mockery, their cruelty, their pride, and now, in front of them, stood the truth they could never deny. The beast roared again, the sound shaking the walls. But this roar was not for enemies. It was for the station. It was a command, a promise, and a warning. The aliens felt it in their bones. This was no pet. This was a guardian, a protector, a legend. One alien soldier whispered, "We thought humans were nothing, a young race, weak and fragile." Another answered softly, "But maybe that is their strength. Maybe they see what we cannot." The hall filled with quiet voices, broken by shame and wonder. No one laughed, no one dared. The pride of countless species had shattered in one moment. The human knelt, placing his hand on the beast's glowing scales. It lowered its massive head to him, like a loyal friend bowing to its master. The aliens gasped at the sight. This towering force of power, this destroyer of fleets, was bending willingly to a human. It was not control, it was trust. And that trust was stronger than any weapon. From that moment, the aliens knew something had changed. The balance of pride was broken. No longer could they mock humanity, no longer could they call them weak, for the galaxy had seen a truth it could never forget. The human rose again, his voice calm. "You laughed at what you did not understand," he said. "Now you know. Never laugh at what a human loves. Because love carries strength you cannot measure. The silence that followed was heavy. Aliens bowed their heads, their pride gone. The once loud hall was filled with nothing but the hum of power from the beast. And deep inside every heart, one truth carved itself like fire into stone. The galaxy would never mock a human's pet again. Outside, the battle was still raging, but the war had already shifted. Because it was no longer just a fight for survival. It was the birth of a legend written in shame, power, and awe. The pride of the aliens was shattered, and in its place, respect for humanity began. The battlefield outside the station burned with fire and light. Enemy ships drifted broken through the void, explosions glowing like dying stars. The beast flew among them, its massive wings shining brighter than the flames of war. Each strike of its claws tore apart metal giants. Each roar shattered the courage of its foes. The enemy fleet, once proud and merciless, now faltered. Their captains shouted orders, but fear spread faster than command. One by one, the ships turned to flee, their courage broken, for no weapon could pierce the light that shielded the beast. No army could face the fury it carried. Inside the station, aliens stood by the windows, their faces pale, their voices silent. They had once mocked the human for carrying a cage. Now they watched the same creature tear apart an entire fleet. Their shame was heavy, their pride gone, and yet, in their hearts, awe began to grow. The human stood quietly in the hall, his eyes following his companion through the stars. He gave no speeches, no shouts, only a calm nod each time the beast struck. He had always believed, always trusted, and now the galaxy saw what he had known all along. At last, the enemy fleet broke, their survivors fleeing into the void. The beast gave one final roar, so loud it shook even the silence of space. Then it returned, landing gently upon the station's outer hull. Its glowing body filled the shadows with light. The war was over, but the memory of it would never fade. The station's soldiers gathered, their weapons lowered, their eyes still wide with disbelief. One alien whispered, "It fought for us." Another said softly, "It saved us all." And another added, voice trembling, "And we laughed at it, we laughed at him." The beast lowered its head, pressing against the glass as if listening to the voices inside. The human placed his hand against the window. Calm and steady, he whispered, "It is done." The creature's eyes glowed gently, no longer fierce, but warm. It had fought not for glory, not for fear, but for the bond it shared with its human. In that moment, the aliens understood. The strength they had seen was not born of size, or weapons, or armies. It was born of trust, of loyalty, of love. Things they had dismissed as weakness, things humanity carried like hidden fire. The story spread quickly. Faster than light, ships that fled carried tales of the battle, of the beast, of the human who never wavered. At first, the whispers were filled with disbelief. But soon, disbelief turned into legend. And legends cannot be silenced across the galaxy. Voices repeated the tale. They laughed at the human's pet, but it became a guardian. They mocked, but they were saved. Never laugh at what a human protects. The word spread from station to station, world to world, until the whole galaxy knew. The aliens who had mocked the loudest could never escape their shame. Wherever they went, others reminded them, "You were there, you saw it, you laughed." They bowed their heads, unable to answer, for they had been the first to witness the truth. And the truth was greater than their pride. The human did not seek fame, he did not seek power. He lived quietly, always with the beast by his side. It no longer needed a cage, it walked freely, its massive form filling every hall. Yet to him, it was still the same small companion he had once carried, a friend, not a weapon, not a tool, but family. And so the galaxy remembered, not just the battle, not just the destruction of the enemy fleet, but the lesson carved into every heart. That humans carry strength in strange places, that their love can awaken power beyond imagination, that what looks weak can change the stars. The legend grew with every telling. Some called the beast the guardian of humanity. Others named it the Starburn Protector. But to the human, it was still only his pet, and when he whispered its name, the beast bowed its head like always, loyal and true. The galaxy had laughed once, but it would never laugh again. Instead, it would remember, it would tell the story of a human who carried a cage, of a creature that became a legend, and of the day the stars themselves learned respect. The legend had begun, and it would never end.